Yo, monkey, it's me, DDP, the king of bada bing, the master of the diamond cutter, the three-time world champion and CEO and founder of DDP Yoga. And you, monkey, well, you're listening to my main man, the man on planet Tower Power, man, too sweet to be sour, getting funky like a monkey. Good God, you're listening to Redhands.
Self-high five.
I remember seeing you at Disney World when WCW used to be there, and I was like 8 or 9 years old. So to see you when I was that young, you looked like a giant to me, and I've been a fan ever since.
Cool.
I'm reading about DDP Yoga, and you've done some great things with it. But I didn't know that you actually started it in '98.
Yeah, I didn't start wrestling until I was 35. You had to look at the whole thing, like how everything happened. I didn't start wrestling until I was 35. I was in 1991. It took me till I was 40 years old for my career to take off. And that was in '96 when wrestling went crazy on cable television. We took over pretty much under the top 10 shows every single week that we were on. We had 4 of them in the top 10. Normally we were 1, 2, and 3 between WWF and WCW. My career took off at a feverish pitch. I was in one main event after the other. Probably 13 out of 24, either main events or semi-main events. And then I blew my back out so badly that 3 of the best back specialists in the world said my career was over. I just signed a multi-million-dollar 3-year deal. So it was out of necessity that DDP Yoga was born, because I was a guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga the first 42 years of my life. But when you are pushed into a position, sometimes, I think about, to make a diamond, it has to be so compressed, pushed into a position, something really great can come out of that. And out of it, I started doing the yoga. And, I wasn't into any spiritual mumbo-jumbo. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It just wasn't for me. And in the first 3 weeks, though, I felt a significant difference. So what I started to do on my own was take those yoga positions and mix them with the rehab stuff I've been doing, like the rehab my back. I rehabbed both shoulders and both knees from surgery. And so I knew quite a bit about, healing myself after the operation. But in this scenario, they said I couldn't have an operation, because if I did, I would be totally out. And I didn't want anybody operating on my back anyway. So I just started to mix the yoga, the rehab, the old school calisthenics, and something I would later call dynamic resistance. And that's flexing and engaging your muscles as you move from one position to another. You see, stretching is really good, but DDP Yoga is a whole other animal, because we're not just stretching muscles. We're stretching and strengthening not just muscles, but ligaments and tendons as well. So it really can make you, with so much unvulnerable, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to injury. It's like injury preventive maintenance. And in less than 3 months of what would become known as DDP Yoga, I was back in the ring. At 42, 1998, they said my wrestling career was over. And the Spring Stampede, April 11th, 1999, I was the heavyweight champion of the world.
So that was before, was that before the run with Karl Malone and all that, or was that after?
It was right after. It was pretty much right after that. Everything all led up to that. They couldn't hold me down anymore. And they weren't going to make me one of the carrying champions like Goldberg, or Hogan. But I was a very, I was the guy who was the believable guy who was the interim champion to get to the next guy, that believable could win the world title. you know, and it's all about storylines, but it's all about do the people believe, you know, and I should have got it back in 98. They dropped the ball there, but it's irrelevant. You know, I'm very proud of my career. I had an unbelievable, I lived the dream at, you know, on level 25 on a 1 to 10, you know.
Well, I know before you really officially made it, you had some interactions with wrestling, but did you want to be a wrestler your whole life before that?
When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a wrestler. You know, like a lot of kids are like that. And then I got away from it when I was 12. I started playing sports. You know, I'd been playing sports for about 3 years at that time. And then I got hit by a car and it blew my knee out. And I had to refocus and focus on basketball. So, you're talking to a guy who's had some serious injuries in his life. And now at 58, can do what a lot of the kids can't do in the greatest shape of their lives in the WWE. You know, after beating my body up from 35 to 49. But I wanted to be that wrestler as a kid. And I sort of got swayed away from it because I was so dialed in on my own sports. And then in my late teens, I got back into it and decided to try to become a wrestler at 22. And it didn't work out for me. And then 11 years went by. The reason why, when it didn't work out for me, I tore that same knee again. I didn't tear an ACL or anything, but I hurt it bad enough to put me out for a couple months. And then I started running my first nightclub. I was 22 years old. So I had so much fun with the booze, the broads, and the party that, you know, I sort of lost sight of the dream. And then when I was running a big-ass club in Fort Myers, Florida, I decided, well, you know what, I'm too old to be a wrestler. I was almost 32 at the time. And I said, well, I'm going to try to become a wrestling manager. And I made up a videotape with me and a bunch of wrestlers and sent it to the AWA, and next thing you know, I'm on ESPN. You know, doing that stuff still plays on ESPN Classic. It's pretty crazy. But that's how it started. And 3.5 years after that, I got a shot with WCW, and Dusty Rhodes brought me in as a manager. And after 5 months of doing the Freebirds and creating Scott Hall's Diamond Stud character, who later would literally become Razor Ramon, you know, they were like, you know, you're too gregarious outside the ring. You take too much attention away. What we should have done is give you a pair of tights and boots and see if you can do this. And they sort of laughed. Well, I was 35 and a half at the time, so I understand them sort of laughing. But I had 7 months left of my contract, and no one knows work ethic like I do. And everyone said it could never happen, and God, they were wrong. You know, don't ever let anybody tell you what you can or can't do.
Where do you get this work ethic from? Because, you know, I read your background, and I know you had it a little rough, and you know, you had some learning disabilities and things like that. So, where did you get this spirit and this work ethic from?
Well, I was a natural when I was 9, 10, 11. In football and hockey, I was a natural, and you know, I probably a boatload of testosterone kicking in right around that time too. You know, for being a little kid, you know. But I was just, it came to me like really easy. Then I hit by a car, and I flew 42 feet from the point of impact. And, you know, they rushed me to the hospital, did all the stuff they had to do. Back then, there was no such thing as rehab. And I had tore my ACL, tore my meniscus, broke up a piece of my kneecap. And the bottom line is, the doctor said I could not play the two sports that I loved, which was hockey and football. I mean, I remember crying big time over that too. And
DDP actually cries. I didn't think you could cry.
Yeah, I cried like a little baby. And I started playing basketball. And basketball was a sport I liked the least because I sucked at it. Nobody really likes what they can't do, so they, you know, if they're bodybuilders and they got good arms but shitty chests, they spend all the time working their arms. When they should be spending all the time working on their chest. But when it came to basketball, I tried out for the team in 7th grade. I didn't make it. 8th grade, I sat on the bench. And that summer, I swore that would never happen to me again. And I went down that St. Peter's Park, and I played 5+ hours a day, every single